Back on MorningLine, our guest with us this morning is Metro Vice Mayor Jim Shulman, talking about the affairs of the city of Nashville, talking about whether or not the Republican National Convention may indeed come here. Would be an economic boon, and certainly if it does. You talked about the issue of maybe having to cancel some other conventions already scheduled. Not a done deal, but it doesn't look like it's going to happen, at least not as we sit here right now. We've got Vicki. Let's take her call real quick and continue our conversation. Vicki, good morning. Hi, Vicki.
Good morning, Nick. How are you today?
Good. What's on your mind?
Well, on the Republican National Convention, I think they've made a really good choice. We don't need the violence that, and everybody's thinking this, I'm the one who's going to say it, we don't need the violence that Trump brings to our town. And I think that is a real big plus to not have it here. And I'm really thankful that they made that decision.
All right, thank you. Yeah, listen, I think Jim said earlier, and you're right, I think in this day and age, whether it's the Republican National Convention, and we don't know what former President Trump's going to do yet, or Democrat, I think both of those in this day and age, there are going to be heightened security concerns on both sides, just with protests and what's going to come. And it's a crying shame. And we get any of those buffoons that want to come out and get violent and do this. I'm tired of this, you know, but there's still a reality, and we've got to be aware of that.
Well, and I appreciate Vicki's call. I think you put that many people together, and I mean, you talk about a split between Republicans and Democrats. There are splits between Democrats and splits between Republicans and Republicans. You put them all in one location, everybody, the focus of the country, and to some extent the world, is focused on these things. It's usually in August, it gets hot, and everybody's packed in the streets, and we worry. I mean, I think it's a worry. Obviously, Milwaukee would have the same concerns, but they don't necessarily have the tourist on top of that. So you mix all that stuff together in Nashville, and you may run into a situation. We just want to, I think there's a concern about making sure that everybody is safe. Yeah. And you can plow as much money as you want to into, trying to keep everybody safe and secure.
Hey, listen, I was down, I told you, and I think the city did a great job on the 4th of July, but I'd be lying if I told you, and I was down there in the middle of it, down on a riser.
I saw you down there.
Right in front of the stage, surrounded by 300,000 people about, and everything went fine, and they did a great job, but in the back of my mind was what happened earlier that morning with that mass shooting, okay? And I'm thinking to myself, if someone truly wants to do damage and doesn't care if they live or die, I don't care what kind of security, you ain't stopping them. I mean, you'll eventually get to them, but they're going to get in, and they're going to be able to do some damage. And my head was aware of that down there, and it was a shame because there was a horrible shooting earlier in the day, a couple of shootings leading up to the 4th of July that weekend, and that was on my mind. And that's 4th of July. Throw politics into it with a convention? Wow.
Do you know, apparently there were, I think, 10 mass shootings in this country on July 4th.
Yeah, and it's just,
you heard about Highland Park, but there were other mass shootings going on.
That's right. Yeah.
Look, we want to keep everybody safe.
When you have crowds like that, it's just the cops do the best they can, and there's a lot. And Butch was telling me what kind of Butch spirit and security kind of. But man, there's only so much you can do when there's 100, 200,000 people coming into one location. If someone really wants to do some damage, you can't stop them.
Well,
you can't.
You do everybody does hopefully the best they can in terms of doing this. The conventions are going to go on someplace, whether they're here, Milwaukee, where the Democrats end up. Part of what you want to try to do, I think, is tone the rhetoric down. Yeah. You can have policy fights on the floor, you can work out your platform, all the other stuff, and then you can figure out, usually you'll know who the convention is going to nominate, unless it's close, and then you have a fight on the floor. But again, you've got lots of concerns out there, and I really want to see the civil discourse. I want to see people talking again, communicating, trying to work out solutions, and not heighten it, bringing that tension up.
And that's what you said you want to do with the Republican lawmakers here, the legislature, because like you said, some of them might say, well, we can get punitive with you if you're not going to work with us and bring this convention. What can state lawmakers do? The city is autonomous in a lot of ways, but money's come through the state to the city. So what could lawmakers do?
You could see a pulling back on grant funds, maybe transportation funds. There are budgetary concerns. Our budget has to be approved by the state comptroller. Look, we don't, if what I'm saying is right, and hopefully other people agree, that we need to tone that rhetoric down. And there's always opportunities to sit down and talk to people.
But it's all rhetoric, because I've seen some of the lawmakers say, well, I don't understand. When they say up there that they're in favor of either Democratic or Republican coming here because of the money it means for the city, I think that's a bunch of hooey. If this was the Democratic National Convention coming here and you guys had voted to say no to it, you would not have these Republican lawmakers saying, well, why are you saying no to all that money? To heck with that. They'd be glad it's not coming. So let's just not be stupid and say dumb things like that. We know there's politics involved, so don't give me any of that crap, okay? They're upset because the Republican convention that you guys are saying you're not. And you guys I understand the safety issue, but trust me, if this was the Democratic convention, there would be more council members in favor of it coming. It's just, come on. Just call it like it is.
Well,
jeez, no one ever speaks clearly on that. That's exactly what's going on here.
Well, let's hope that. I know that's underlying. We know that, but again, what I want to try to do is get out of this rhetoric of calling each other names and just talk it out. And so, I think that to me, the effort should be, and we've started this process to some extent. Let's start talking. If at least from my standpoint, I didn't talk to anybody about the convention. Except towards the end when I got the details of what was coming. In the old days, whenever those were, if there was something like this, everybody would sit down and see if they could work it out. If they can't, they can't. But you sit down and have a civil discussion. You actually kind of work, you try to figure out what are the possibilities, what are not. Right now it's more, let's just, you watch Washington, they're great at this. They throw things back and forth. And it's like, y'all just sit down and talk. Don't just play it through the media. You need to start talking, Nick. Makes it much easier.
Let's talk to James. James, good morning. Hi, James.
Good morning, guys. How you doing?
Good.
Hey,
what's on your mind, James?
The homeless first, man. I think we could find some chunk of land. It doesn't have to be in the county, just somewhere close where we could start like a campground for them. I know it's going to be a pain in the butt. And secondly, why don't we split them? Put the Democrats in Memphis and Republicans here in Nashville, or vice versa.
He's got a possibility. When we were talking before, it's like, where could you put people where they could have a convention where they can yell and scream, but everybody else is safe. You just focus on the people there, and it's like, maybe you put them in between Memphis and Nashville in someplace where there is nothing.
That's the point. If you could place this convention in one of these counties where many of our Republican lawmakers come from, that would be great, because it's mostly Republican there. But we all know the major metropolitan areas, primarily in any state, is likely going to be more Democrat than Republican. But you can't put them in, Chattanooga, for instance, something like that.
You don't have the rooms, and you don't have the rooms.
You have to have the city infrastructure the size of Nashville.
I know.
And Memphis was not even considered, but Memphis could accommodate probably the convention. But I can tell you, the Republican National Convention has no interest in going to Memphis. Zero. I don't care what they say. Well, let's go to Prissy. Oh, what?
Do you want to talk about the homeless part?
Well,
he talked about, and I just mentioned it before.
It's always the same thing with homeless.
Yeah.
Right. I understand what he's saying, but
James is he's talking about a sanctioned encampment where people can sit up there. I tell you, that has been looked at. It is always a possibility, but the question is where, and who lives around it, and who's going to scream, and
there's always a good idea, but there's always some fallback someplace along the line.
So we have to have the political will at some point to figure out what we want to do, and then go do it.
Yeah, and then do it and have the money to do it.
And have the money to do it. Well, I think we got the money to do it. We just got to figure out what it is. Yeah.
Let's go to Prissy. Prissy, good morning. Hi, Prissy.
Good morning. Mr. Vice Mayor, here's what's got me confused, okay? The Republican Party says they're all about freedom and electing the people that you want to do things your way. Well, here we are, a city, actually a county government, and we're putting the city council up, and we've elected them to do our will. We're short on police officers. We respect our police officers here in Nashville. We don't want them overburdened or any harm to come to them, and we don't want to put them in a position. So here we have the state who talks about the state's rights and the state and everything, and I think this is what it boils down to. This is my opinion. There have been so many state lawmakers in the past 20 years that have used their office and position in the state legislature to make money off of Nashville and investments in criminal justice or bars or whatever they've come to, sports teams, that now these millionaire state legislatures and their friends are telling us here in Nashville, who pay the taxes here and put up with the headache here, what to do. Now, to me, that is the quintessential tyranny of the state to say, if you don't do what we want to do, we're the aristocrats. We're going to punish y'all. So that is so hypocritical. I can't even begin to start. So to me, we voted y'all in, and y'all are doing what we want you to do. And they always complain in the state legislature about outside influences. Well, you're influencing us. And if you live in Bean Station, Tennessee, or some remote part of Tennessee, your state legislature is probably down here partying like hell and making money off of us, and you don't know what they're doing.
Well, she's right about the hypocrisy there. There is, and so many times. Less government, and then we want to tell you what to do. I'm sorry.
You may want to have Prissy on your show.
Yeah.
I mean, she's making very strong points.
Yeah.
And
I mean, state lawmakers don't want the federal government to come in here and tell them what to do, but they want to tell Nashville what to do.
Well, it's interesting how that works.
Yeah.
You know, it's we have local government has less power than the state. They can try to tell us what to do. State has less power than the federal government, and the federal government can tell the state what to do. And then you've got the Supreme Court making decisions about all this stuff. It's almost like we're on a roller coaster. I mean, it feels like we've been on one anyway. Maybe one that jerks and stops and sometimes leave you stranded upside down, waiting for somebody to come help you. But it's a wild ride right now.
Yeah, no, it's a hypocrisy, and it's only when it's convenient, is it? But when you want something, well, yeah, we want to be able to tell you what to do. We'll take a break. When we come back, we can take a few more phone calls, and I want to ask the Vice Mayor about some of these proposed charter amendments. One of them's kind of interesting. Metro Police Chief John Drake has been advocating it. It would actually change, I think, lessen the physical qualifications for Metro police officers. There may be a good reason to do that. And what does it take physically to be a police officer? We'll get into that and whether or not those standards should be reduced. You can tell me what you think. We'll be back right after this.